God here. And it's football season. And it's like 100 degrees outside. Sorry about that. Welcome to Season 4 of Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is season number 4 of Gods of Odds, and it is week 1 of your National Football League season. This is the show where we pick the top 10 games worth actually spending some money on. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave Daba up in Northern California. And Brad, I am so confident that in our 4 years, this will go down as the best show we have ever done. Mr. Hoyseth, how are you doing sporting your beautiful Minnesota, I almost said Timberwolves, but Twins hat?
We're what, about 2 hours away from the start of the regular season? Two and a half hours, something like that. I think that Chiefs game against whoever starts off, it's supposed to be a great game. Should be a fun one to watch. A lot of people, I was listening to NFL radio, they were talking about everybody's taking the over. They think it's going to be in the 40s, the Chiefs and the Lions, and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It's exciting. It's an exciting time of year. We all had our fantasy football drafts, and now we're ready to see how disappointing our players can become real quickly. And speaking of disappointing, I wore my Twins cap because I think they've lost 17 straight playoff games, Dave, something like that. So we'll see what happens
against the Yankees.
I don't know, but it's been a rugged stretch. Hopefully that changes this year. So anyways, it's a good time of the year. How about you?
Yeah. Super fired up and excited. I don't think we're picking the Kansas City Chiefs Detroit Lions game this week, but the Lions are just the crazy trendy team in the National Football League this year. It's almost as if people have been watching reruns of Dan Campbell on Hard Knocks last year, and it's just ingrained with a lot of people across the National Football League and the media itself. I mean, I think maybe one of the craziest things I've seen in the media recently was the guys over on First Things First, which is a show on FS1 that I actually really enjoy, had the Minnesota Vikings finishing in third place in the NFC North, which to me is a crazy prediction. And I think the Detroit Lions have historically been bad. And while they won't be as bad as they've been, I just have a hard time with anybody that legitimately says Jared Goff is going to lead them actually to a division title this year. The Vikes just have way too much firepower at this point.
Well, I mean, I like to see that you're sane to start the year. I'm there with you. You know how I feel about Goff. I can't stand him. I think it's just a matter of time before defenses figure out that offense. I'm with you. I'm not buying what they're selling. Love the offense. It's a lot of fun to watch, but they got a lot of pieces missing on the other side of the ball. And, at the end of the day, they still are the Lions. I'm with you. I think the Vikings have got to be the favorite. And I tell you what, I think 1A might be the Bears. I really do. I think the Bears are going to be a team on the rise this year. The Lions, they could go back to being the Lions any day. You never know.
Yep. All right. Well, before we dive in, because Brad's big on his Bears, obviously this year, big Bears fan is Brad Hoyseth going to be this season. And as much as I want to follow him, I'm still a little bit skeptical. But I agree the Bears should be definitely improved this year. Brad, we've done absolutely no prep really for the start of Gods of Odds season 4. It's sort of how we like to roll.
Yeah, 3 years of no prep, might as well make it a fourth, right? I mean,
exactly. So, who do you have going to the Super Bowl, and who do you have winning it all?
Boy, you're going to do this to me again this year. Remember what the first year we had Gods of Odds and I picked the Lions to win the division, and I think they finished in the cellar. I learned my lesson there. No, I mean, if I look at it, I think the Eagles have got to be, if not the favorite to win it all, one of the favorites. I think they're the clear runaway favorite in the NFC right now. And then looking at the AFC, I think, obviously the Chiefs are still the Chiefs. Can they stay healthy and have another run? Some of the guys are starting to get a little bit older now, but I think if I'm looking for another team, the Bengals I think are going to be good, but I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are a potential sleeper team. I think that's a team that I would watch out for this year. I think Field or a quarterback there now with another year under his belt, they got a couple more weapons there. I think that's going to be an up and coming team.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be really interesting to see what happens with the Los Angeles Chargers this year as well, and their new offensive coordinator there. Having lived in Southern California for a really long time, I know that trying to say that the Chargers are going to go to the Super Bowl, you have to get through at least 4 or 5 missed field goals before you'd even get there. But Justin Herbert is just phenomenal. And then I think Baltimore, the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, also with a new offensive coordinator this year, hard to pick either of those teams this early in the season because we just don't really know yet how those offenses are going to look. But that's a stacked Ravens defense. And I think the Ravens could do some damage. Now, Brad, if I were forced to pick 2 teams, I would take, and I've been wrong about this before, but I'm going right back to the star in Dallas. I am going to pick the Dallas Cowboys.
I think you took them last year.
The Super Bowl this year. I think this is the second time in 4 years I am going to ride this Cowboy bandwagon. And I just think that if their wide receivers can stay healthy and Dak Prescott can make some better decisions, and you can't forget Mike McCarthy has won a Super Bowl, Brad. And by now he's watched all the video he told Jerry Jones he watched during his interview process. So I've got the Cowboys as a sleeper coming out of the NFC. And then in the AFC, for me, it's going to be very difficult to pick against the Kansas City Chiefs. But I think this Cincinnati Bengals team certainly has enough firepower to pull it off. I wouldn't be terribly surprised to see the Pittsburgh Steelers at least in the playoffs. But if I have to pick, I would pick Kansas City to repeat their Super Bowl championship over the Dallas Cowboys. And there it's on record.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say earlier that just when you forget about them, the Steelers always seem to win a Super Bowl. Yeah. It seemed about every 5 years you thought, the Steelers, they're just not what they used to be. And then all of a sudden they make a run and they're great, right? I don't think this is quite their year yet, but I'm going to take the Eagles to win it all. I think they beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I think are the up-and-coming team. Your boy Zay Jones, I think, now goes to a number 3 wide receiver because they bring in Calvin Ridley. I mean, I think Travis Etienne has a great breakout year. I love the young talent there.
And don't forget, Brad, also Evan Ingram is on both of my fantasy football teams as well. So a big fan of tight ends that play like wide receivers. especially in fantasy football. All right, there you go. Our big Super Bowl picks for the opening of the season. Mr. Hoysef, why don't you step us into week 1 of Gods of Oz?
All right. Well, we're going to go back to Chicago. The Packers are at the Bears. The Bears are a -1 in that game, opening day. Dave, I think the Packers are a bad football team. I really do. I mean, I don't know how you lose Aaron Rodgers and suddenly you think that that's going to be a winning ingredient. It's been 30 years for Vikings fans and Bears fans and Lions fans. We've been waiting 30 years for a crappy quarterback in Green Bay, right? And I think we finally got one. And so, this weekend, Watson, I don't think is going to play. Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs is probably questionable. He'll probably play. There's not a lot of talent there. And I think the Bears are an up-and-coming team. Justin Fields, I think, is an electric player to watch. Whether or not they've opened up the offense and let him throw it a little bit this year, that's going to be the big question mark there. But playing at home opening day against the Packers team that I don't think is very talented, I'm going to take the Bears. I'm going to give that one.
Yeah, I will agree with you on almost everything you said. I think I'm going to be fair to Jordan Love. He's clearly not going to be, the next great Green Bay Packer quarterback. Can he be a middle of the level road quarterback? Can he be, the 20th best quarterback in the National Football League? That's probably where I have like Jordan Love, sort of heading into the season. I don't think he's going to be horrific, but I don't think he's, anywhere near even a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers is as a starting quarterback in the National Football League. And as a Viking fan, and also speaking for Bears fans, this is a great time for us. This is a whole new era. Green Bay's finally getting what they deserve, and they had a chance to make a move and pick up Jonathan Taylor a couple weeks ago, and they blew it. Look, negotiating with Jim Irsay is like trying to negotiate with a wall with wet paint on it. I'm not really sure, exactly what
how many times have you done that, Dave? I've never done that.
I'm just saying all the fumes that you get from the paint is something that every time Jim Irsay talks, he sounds like he's been sniffing fumes, and I'll leave it at that. So I think that was a mistake by the Packers. I mean, obviously they had a chance to make that move and weren't able to do it. They do have two nice, really solid running backs, but I think this is an improving Chicago Bears team. Started the season, almost everybody's healthy. You mentioned the injuries that the Packers actually have going into the season, especially with Watson. I agree. I've got the Bears on this, and I'm surprised it's only a 1-point line.
Yeah, I'm going to say one more thing on this Packer thing, because I think everybody else is celebrating in the NFC North. I think this team is closer to the pre-Don Majkowski years, Dave, than it is the early Aaron Rodgers days. So let's just put it that way. I don't think there's a lot of talent on that team. I just don't.
Yeah, well, this is when you find out how good a coach really is, and keeping the team in and around 500 would tell me that they've got a good coaching staff in place. But implosion is what I'm looking for this year out of the Green Bay Packers. All right, moving on. We're going to stay in the North with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and my favorite, Baker Mayfield. Bring back the progressive commercials, please. Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers heading into Minnesota to do battle with, unfortunately, one of my fantasy football team quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins. That's how bad my draft went. When Kirk Cousins is the best you can do, things did not go well for you in your draft. That being said, Vikings favored by 6. I think the impact of losing Dalvin Cook is going to be felt pretty early on in the season. The impact of losing, quite frankly, one of my all-time favorite wide receivers out of Minnesota State, in Adam Thielen, is also going to be, something for this offense to overcome, especially during the first 4 or 5 games of the season. As the season goes on, I think you'll see how they're going to deal with both of those losses in different ways. If they can keep Jordan Addison, their rookie wide receiver, from hopping in his Lamborghini SUV and driving 120 miles an hour, they should be in a pretty good spot. True story. His dog was apparently sick, Brad. Anyways, but I've got the Vikes winning this. I think they're, defense is, not going to be great, but it will be improved, which isn't hard to do over what happened last year. They're still playing a 3-4 defense, which quite frankly, I'm not a big fan of. But we'll see how it all plays out from a scheme perspective. Brian Flores, the Vikings' new defensive coordinator, will do a far superior job with adjustments than were done last year. And then on top of it, Justin Jefferson, who for some strange reason hasn't received a mega new contract from the Minnesota Vikings yet, which, could turn into something at some point during the season. But I just think there's too much weaponry on this Viking team. I've got the Vikes winning this one pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. And I don't know if it's as much to do about the Vikings as it is about the Buccaneers. I just don't, I don't think they're a very talented team. And, there's a reason Tom Brady decided that was it. Their offensive line is not very good. The Vikings had a billion holes on defense last year. And so, I think Brian Flores is a really good coach. So I thought he got robbed in Miami. They should never blown him. Didn't he win like his final 7 or 8 games as a head coach in Miami? And all of a sudden he got fired.
Totally robbed in Miami.
Yeah, I don't get it. So they only have up to go when it comes to defense. And offensively, they're a pretty solid football team. So not a lot of really changed parts there. You know me, Dave, I think running backs are a dime a dozen. It could be Alexander Madison and, whoever's up after that. It doesn't make any difference to me. You're going to win with Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson and Addison and all those guys. They're going to win you the game. And then you got to get some stops on defense this year, though. But I just don't think the Buccaneers have a tremendous amount of weapons there. Baker will do his little razzle-dazzle, run for his life trick a couple of times. Maybe Rashad White gets a touchdown or 2. But I think the Vikings, they showed last year. Remember they had that big run of like 10 or 11 wins where it was 1-score games or something. And that's a really good habit, let's just say. And so it's a 6-point line. I'm going to take the Vikings. I'm going to give the 6. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I so much to unpack with what Brad Hoyseth just said. Let me start with Tom Brady. See, I don't know if you saw this, Brad, but Tom Brady signed a deal with Delta Airlines, and the headline is Tom Brady is now an advisor to Delta Airlines. What the hell does Tom Brady know about airplanes? I mean, I'm just asking you. Obviously, it's a paid, they're going to pay him to be a spokesperson and all that stuff. But I mean, still, it's like, I think we can, cut down on baggages per plane. Is Tom Brady going to be making that kind of suggestion? Hey, we can cut back on fuel a little bit.
They make it sound like Tom Brady's actually taken a normal plane in his last 10 years of his career. I mean, what's the chances he's ever been on a regular, plane
Are we
other than a
actually
private?
going to ever see Tom Brady get off of a Delta Airlines plane? I mean, I think that's got to be one of the questions. Look, as for this particular game, I mean, you're right to focus in on Tampa. Just, they've got some great weapons on the offensive side of the ball. I want nothing but the best for Baker Mayfield this year. I want to see him have a resurgence. I want to see him do well. I want to see him not lose his job. But I'm totally fine with him going down in flames against the Vikings in this first game of the season. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
All right, I'm going to jump into game number 2 here of my picks. And I don't think we ever gave a recap of last year, did we? I mean, I think I ended up around 52, 53% for the year. I ended up winning, put me up 2 seasons to 1 on Dave. So we're trying to, if I get a third win, that's kind of overwhelming, I think, Dave. But
I purposely forgot to bring it up at the start of the
I noticed that. Anyways, I'm going to go Jags at Colts. Right now, the Jags are a 5-point favorite at the Colts. You heard it in my opening, my prediction. I think the Jaguars are going to be for real this year. I think they're going to be tough to beat. I don't think much of the Colts. They got all kinds of problems. Jonathan Taylor wants out. The owners, they've always been the same guys, and they're tough to deal with. And so, a lot of really good people have gotten run out of that city when it comes to football, and I think the football team's going to get run out this weekend because I think the Jags are going to run up the score. It's an easy one for me. Jacksonville minus the 5. I'll hit that all day.
Yeah, I'm on the Jaguars. I'm on a limited Jaguars bandwagon at the start of the season. Good coach, really young offense, some great weapons. Not in love with their running game yet, to the level that I am with some other teams. I absolutely hate Hoisev's dime a dozen running back theory, and you are just like 95% of the other people in the media that say that. And I just think it's just wrong. Like I would pay the $12 million a year for Jonathan Taylor at this stage of his career. It's one thing when Dalvin Cook is towards the end of that window, but Jonathan Taylor is still in the heart of that part of his career. I would definitely, why not pay it and take some of the pressure off of your passing game, regardless of what team you are. I just think Indianapolis at this point is a bit of a disaster, from the ownership down to their general manager, new coaching staff. We got to give them a chance because you just never know what you're going to get from a coaching staff and how they are able to motivate a team in a way that you might not have suspected. And I cite what the hell happened with Colorado and Deion Sanders. I saw that coming a mile away. Knew that Colorado was going to at least play TCU really tough last Saturday. Not at all surprising. So I'm not sure yet on this Indianapolis Colts team if they're going to be as bad as we think they are. But I'm going to agree with you and take the Jags in this one.
Hey, one more sidebar story that I don't know. Did you happen to watch the Gopher-Nebraska game last week, Dave?
Okay. By far, one of the worst offensive football games I've seen in years. It set college football back to the 1920s.
Hey, look, I told everybody I know, there's a reason why 92,000 people showed up for the Nebraska volleyball game because there ain't nothing to watch on the football field this year, Dave. Nothing.
Oh, just brutal. And then after the Colorado game, by the way, one of the post game announcers is like, well, we'll see if they're going to be able to get by Nebraska at home. And I'm like, did that guy not watch how bad Nebraska currently is? Look, I know Matt Rule's going to get things turned around. It's just
I don't think
right
so.
Now.
I really don't think so, Dave. It's the least talented Nebraska team I've ever seen. And somehow the Gophers just barely escaped. And so I think both teams are really poor. But anyways, we had to get that out of the way.
Yeah. My pick?
Yes.
Okay. My second pick. So look, Mike Tomlin was the one guy last year that decided to send out an olive branch to Brian Flores as he went through his suing of the National Football League and the Miami Dolphins, rightfully so. And so Brian Flores, as you know, joined the Pittsburgh Steelers coaching staff last season, which is the next game we're going to cover, which is 49ers at the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a scary game if you're a 49er fan to start the season out with. Now, I got to tell you, I absolutely believe in Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy is the 10th best quarterback entering the National Football League season. I'm not crazy to put him in like that top 5, top 7 or 8, but he's, that Dak Prescott level. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to make, there are going to be issues that pop up. There's a question of whether or not he can stay healthy throughout an entire season is another thing. This is a fantastic Pittsburgh Steelers defense. The offense is getting better. Kenny Pickett to Pickens, get used to hearing that a lot this season. I think you're going to see a vastly improved Kenny Pickens at quarterback. They have some nice young running backs beyond Najee. So it should be interesting to see how this game all plays out. I didn't want to pick who was going to win this. Instead, I decided to go with the over under, and I couldn't believe that the over was just 41 on this. So I'm taking the over because I believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers offense is going to be semi-explosive, which means they're probably going to score in and around 20 to 24 points. And the same thing can be said for the San Francisco 49ers. I've taken the over.
Yeah, I'm going to go the under, Dave. Both teams, I think they're the two best defenses in the league. I really do. When San Francisco's healthy, which is almost never. I mean, Bosa's, he might not play, and it seems like there's always somebody walking wounded on that roster. But Pittsburgh's had this game in their sights now for the whole entire offseason. It's the first game of the year, and Brock Purdy it was a nice little fairy tale story at the end of the year last year. Made a nice little run, and they looked good. He looked good. But defenses have a tendency to adjust, Dave. And we saw it on Jared Goff when he was at the Rams. Remember, he had a great year, and then all of a sudden Jared Goff went down the tubes. Don't be surprised if that happens again, by the way, this year with Jared Goff and the Lions. That's my second prediction in a matter of 15 seconds here. But look, I'm going to go with the under in this one. I think it's a low-scoring affair in Pittsburgh. I think it's two offenses that at times can struggle. I love the weapons in San Francisco. There's question marks whether or not Kittle's going to play. So I'm going to go the under. I just think that the two great defenses on opening days, the defenses tend to be a little bit ahead of the offenses at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. Who do you think is going to win this game?
It's a heck of a game. I think it's one of the great games of the weekend. Yeah. I really do. It's one of the more entertaining games of the weekend. It's always fun watching football in both of those cities, really. Pittsburgh and San Francisco are great football cities. I'm I like the Steelers at home. I just do, and I think they're a good football team ready for a bounce back. I entirely agree with you on Pickett. I think he's going to have a breakout season there. I'm not as sold on Jalen Warren and some of those guys. I think Najee Harris is going to have a big year for the Steelers this year.
Man, I think the Steelers are, as I've mentioned, I think early in the show, a team that's probably going to sneak into the definitely has the potential to sneak into the playoffs this year. And I agree with you. They're definitely one of what I would consider the top 5 defenses in the National Football League this season, entering the season. And the 49ers can't stay healthy, not even at the start of the season. I mean, it's just, it's amazing. Something goes on in Santa Clara on those practice fields. Maybe that's what they get for building an absolutely horrific new stadium. All right, Mr. Hoysef, I'll send it over to you for your next pick.
All right, the Raiders are at the Broncos. Broncos are a -3 in this game. They're favored. I think the Broncos are one of the more intriguing teams during the offseason with the addition of Sean Payton. I could see a situation where maybe Russell Wilson got comeback player of the year with him at the helm now as the coach. I love the young running back, Javonte Williams. I think they have really good talent at wide receiver there. If they're all healthy, that's been the problem there, is trying to keep them healthy. And remember, it was just a couple years back that they had a great defense. The Raiders seem to me like a team in flux. I'm not entirely sold on Jimmy G coming in there and lighting up the scoreboard. I'm going to take the Broncos at home. I'm going to give the 3 points. I think opening day goes really well for Sean Payton and the Broncos.
Yeah, this was really tough for me, and this was one of those games I could easily flip-flop on, and I was waiting to hear if Brad made any legitimate arguments to get me to shift my silver and black prediction. I didn't hear enough. Russell Wilson maybe turning into the comeback player of the year. All he has to do is he was so bad last year that anything, under double-digit interceptions should get him comeback player of the year. Like Sean Payton was so upset with this Bronco offense during the preseason. It was fantastic. He made him play, into the second half of one of the preseason games because they weren't producing anything.
And by the way, Dave, as it should be, I'm going to tell you right now, you remember the last 2 seasons in a row, I think I've said this. Week 1 offensively will be a disaster. Yeah. It just will. That's why I'm not much for the overs this week. I did take an over in one game, but I got to tell you, the last 2 years we've walked away from the first week or 2 of the season saying, "Man, they got to play the starters in the preseason because these teams just look woefully unprepared."
Yeah, and what was amazing about the Broncos during the preseason was the starters were in. They were going against second, third, and people who are now working at Walmart, and like they literally couldn't move the ball. Are
they putting wet paint on the wall, Dave?
More wet paint. Jim Irsay. There's a new Jim Irsay brand. Stronger scent. Anyways, yeah, I don't. Jimmy G is Jimmy G. You can put him in any uniform, and he's going to perform. Devontae Adams is still like one of the top 3 wide receivers in the National Football League. Josh Jake, like this is the kind of game that this is the kind of game that Josh McDaniels can actually win. I'm not saying he's going to be the head coach of this team at the end of the year, but this is the kind of game you would think that Josh McDaniels is going to be fired up to win. He's going into Denver, where he coached, and he's got, for the most part, most of his players healthy, except for those that don't want to show up on the defensive side of the ball. But I like the Raiders in a bit of an upset here, spoiling Sean Payton's. This was very tough for me, but I'm going to stick with the Raiders. I'll take the 3.
Well, you mentioned that Josh McDaniels, that Denver was a place he coached. I also might add that it was a place that he got fired. So, along with New England, and pretty much he's going to get fired from Las Vegas at some point during this season, Dave. I would say he's top 5 first coach fired alert right away.
And they should do it early so they can go on a run again.
I think right now is a good time.
But I always want him to do well, and he's like Baker Mayfield, but of the coaching variety, and he just doesn't deliver. All right. Moving on. Bills at the Jets, a Monday night football game. I am actually very happy that ESPN is not doing the double Monday night football games this year. I'm a traditionalist. I only want one Monday night football game. I don't need 2, Brad. It's bad enough we got football on Thursdays. So you've got the Bills. Well, not tonight, but normally on a Thursday night. Bills at Jets. Bills actually favored by 2.5 in this one. Aaron Rodgers, it's been maybe 5 years since Aaron Rodgers has actually thrown for over 300 yards at this point. That being said, I like this was a tough game to pick, one way or the other. I like the Jets defense a lot. They certainly have a lot of firepower on the offensive side of the ball, and it would be a magical New York City story in New Jersey if Aaron Rodgers can pull off that victory against the Buffalo Bills at home. So I'm going with the Jets in this one.
You know where else it would be a magical story, Dave? It would be a magical story for Vikings fans, for Bears fans, anybody that played against Aaron Rodgers for the last 15 years. If the Jets come out and win this game, they're going to be laughing at Packers fans all the way to the bank. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're still a ways away. The Jets, offensively, they still don't have a lot of talent. It's hard to tell. Breece Hall, had that terrible ACL last year.
I'm not sure Dalvin Cook, and Dalvin had over 400 yards on the ground last year. I mean, dime a dozen. That's a pretty good dime to spend some money on.
Yeah, that's more like 7 or 8 cents at this point. It's not a dime. It's not a full dime.
I gotta ask you, did Dalvin Cook actually get drafted in your fantasy football league?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he got drafted. Sure, he did. But
it was late, though, wasn't it?
I don't recall. I didn't take him because running backs are a dime a dozen, Dave. So I get him. I don't know. Look, back to the game. The Bills are still the better football team than the Jets, and it's an intriguing game, though. I'm interested to watch it. I'm going to be rooting for the Jets. I'd love to see Aaron Rodgers pull that off on night one, but I'm going to take the Bills and give the points in that thing.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think the Bills are still a really good team. And we didn't even really talk about the Bills when we were talking about who was going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl in the upcoming year. And, the Bills still certainly have enough talent. It's just they never figured anything out about how to run the ball. Dalvin's brother is a shell of what Dalvin Cook was at his peak. So, the Cook kid in Buffalo is not the answer at running back for the Buffalo Bills. They've just never addressed that running game at all. And at least, the Jets, I think, have addressed that with Dalvin as well as with Breece Hall. So Offensive line, we know, is going to be a problem. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers started his offensive line excuses about 3.5 weeks ago. And has anybody done such a great PR job on himself, moving from one team to another, like Aaron Rodgers? He's literally the Jesus of football, Brad, in New York. It's unbelievable. The new Aaron Rodgers. It's amazing. Hard Knocks should be embraced by NFL teams because they almost always come out making the teams look good. So I don't understand why year in and year out there's all this we don't want to be on Hard Knocks crap.
Hey, I would argue that you're wrong that the Bills have not addressed the running game because the running game is Josh Allen. There's nothing to address. He's the best runner on the team. But it's a tricky game for them to play, and it's a dangerous one. I agree with you that they eventually got to find a guy that's behind the quarterback to run the football. Anyways, I'm going to move on to my next one here. I am actually going to take an over. I was talking how the offenses are sloppy, but when you see the Dolphins playing the Chargers and the over-under is 50.5, and this should be a really entertaining game. I think the Dolphins, there's a lot of teams we didn't talk about when we were talking about our Super Bowl predictions, and one of the reasons that the AFC is just loaded. I mean, there's exciting team after exciting team to watch. One of those is the Dolphins. You know how I feel about that Chargers coach, Dave. Can't stand him. I think he's a terrible coach, and he's still there, right? That kid.
Brandon Staley, absolutely.
Yeah,
he is there to be your thorn.
As long as he's there, that team ain't going anywhere. But I think I see that. That's the one game where I see a lot of points being scored. That and the game tonight. So I'm going to go the over at 50.5.
Yeah, I liked the over at 50.5, and I was, pretty happy to see that it wasn't crazy at like 55, which I probably still would have taken. I mean, look, Tyreek Hill himself is going to score 14 points. Yeah. But I think this Charger team is going to be vastly improved, especially at the start of the season. But like, every other team, I'm like most teams in the National Football League, depth is an issue. And depth at the offensive line could be a problem, and certainly in their secondary as well. So, but for the start of the season, fairly almost everybody's pretty healthy against the Dolphins, East Coast team traveling to the West Coast. First game of the year. I like the over in this one. Well,
yeah, and the Dolphins I thought they were one of the more entertaining teams to watch last year. Both these teams, in fairness, are pretty entertaining football teams to watch. But I've seen some interviews with Tua during the offseason, and I just like what he's saying. I think he's a bright kid, and he's saying all the right things. As long as he can keep himself out of the medical tent, I think he's going to have a big year for Miami.
Love to don't wish injury on him. Tua was like I was on the Tua bandwagon the second he got drafted. And then I had to fall off the bandwagon for a year when things didn't go as well. I just fear he's just a hit away. And this is a national football. I mean, he's going to get hit. He's going to end up on the ground. That's my biggest fear here with this Dolphins team. And I hope he stays healthy, but it's definitely going to be a challenge. All right. Moving on to my fourth game, and a game nobody cares about already. The start of the season, Rams at Seahawks. Seahawks are favored in this game by a whopping 5 points. Look, I like Geno Smith and the offense to put up enough points. to beat the Rams by more than 5 in this game. I'm not really sure what this Rams team actually has. Like Brad, you're there in Southern California. What are the Sean McVay expectations? Is what's the over under on like 6 wins for this team this year?
Dave, I'm hearing nothing. I mean, there's no hype, there's no mojo, there's nothing, and I think for good reason. I really do. It's a team
not
that
hearing any of that Rams house BS.
No. It starts at the quarterback, and then now you got Cooper Kupp's going to miss the opening game. He's dinged up, and there's not a lot of excitement over seeing Cam Akers run the ball or Tyler Higbee catch a ball. There's not a lot there. They killed themselves with the cap after they won the Super Bowl, and unfortunately, it's not going away. And Seattle, the question with Seattle is can Geno Smith put together 2 seasons in a row? Because I really thought that he was like, I would call him the comeback player of the year last year, but he really never had a great year before that. So he really couldn't come back, right? But I think he was one of the most improved players in the league last year, and it was fun. I just think they got guys that know how to win there. Tyler Lockett knows how to win. DK Metcalf he's a gamer, and I just don't think the Rams there's no juice, there's no mojo. There doesn't seem to be anybody excited about them. So, I mean, the Seahawks are a 5-point favorite. I thought that was a little rich for my blood, but it's your game, and I'm gonna take the Seahawks. I just think the Rams it's tough times, I think, in LA. They won the Super Bowl, and then they lost everything.
Yeah, the Seahawks are sort of like West Coast Steelers. It seems like every 4 or 5 years they are set up to go on a run, a deep run. I don't think they're going to do that with Geno Smith this year. But Pete Carroll's just one of my all-time favorite coaches. And these kids are playing. The defense is getting better. They've made some significant improvements. They've got a really nice young rookie quarterback as well, that I think they're going to drop into some spots. I believe in this Seahawks team. I don't know that they're going to win the division, but I don't think we're going to see Geno Smith totally fall apart. I think we saw what Geno Smith is last year, good enough to get you into the playoffs. How far can your defense take you from there? Would be the question. But yeah, this Rams team, I can't get any sort of vibe at all on what is going on with this Rams team, other than to say what you said is, they're in salary cap hell, and there's just no excitement, nobody on the team at this point worth talking about.
I mean, I look at that entire division, and it's just, to me, it's San Francisco and nobody else. If there is a team that could challenge it, maybe it's the Seahawks, but I just don't see anything there. Cardinals, they've gone back to being the Cardinals that we've known for the last 30 years. So,
by the way, super quick, because I don't think we're covering the Cardinals at all today. Did you see the new Cardinals uniforms?
I did not.
Oh my God. It is, they have one uniform, which is a total Ohio State ripoff. Like literally when you watch them play, if you didn't see their helmet and you just saw the jerseys and everything, you'd think Ohio State is just horrific.
Oh, Ohio State might beat them, Dave.
You know what? I think Ohio State needs to find a quarterback. I think they're still sort of hunting. Anyways, I'll let you move on.
Who is it? Me? Okay, my final game, Dave. Bengals at the Browns. You got yourself a little, divisional game there. 2 teams that are intriguing. I still think the Bengals are one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl this year. They're on the road though, 1.5 point favorites. And the question is now that Deshaun Watson's been there for a while, can he get this thing cranked up in Cleveland and have the Browns in the mix at the end of the year? I think it's more than likely the answer to that question is no. I just don't think he can. Amari Cooper had a nice season last year. Can he have 2 in a row like that? Playing in that city, I still think Deshaun Watson's a talented guy, but he's not the young guy he was 3-4 years ago when he was, lighting up the scoreboards. And Cleveland still wants to run the ball with Nick Chubb and all those guys. So I'm going to take the Bengals. I think the Bengals are loaded. They got weapons all over the field. They picked up Irv Smith, one of your favorite guys there. I think that will end up being a good addition. I think it'll be one of those things that works out well for Irv Smith.
Yeah, they're looking for somebody to drop a pass.
I knew I was asking for it there, but I'm going to take the Bengals. I'm going to give the 1.5 on the road. It's the one of these times I'm going to take the road dog.
Yeah,
or the road favorite. Sorry.
This was also flip flop potential for me. Kevin Stefanski, the head coach of the Browns, is absolutely on the hot seat now. Right or wrong, he's on the hot seat. Jimmy Haslam, I think, hangs out with Jim Irsay a lot. Those two are probably not the best owners in the National Football League, and I'll leave it at that. There's just something about this Browns running game and Nick Chubb. And traditionally, this version of the Cincinnati Bengals starts the season out a little sluggish and slow. And we don't know, really how healthy is Joe Burrow at this point. T. Higgins was a little nicked up. I don't know. Like, I shouldn't be taking the Browns in this game at all. I can confidently tell you that, but I'm still going to do it anyways. And maybe this is why Brad Hoyseth is leading 2-1 in Gods of Odds, because I rolled the dice a little bit too much early in the season. But I'm going to go ahead and do it here. I just wish I was getting more than 1.5 points from you.
Yeah, well, that line has gone down. It was 2.5, I think, earlier in the week, and there's been some money, like yourself. There's been people putting the money on the Browns, and so that line has actually dropped about 1 point since the beginning of the week. So you might not be alone there.
I knew we should have recorded on Monday. All right, so moving on to my last game, Brad. Of the week, Cowboys at the New York Football Giants. I think that this is a game that the Cowboys are going to win. They're giving up 3 in this game. I think that defense is, one of the top 5 defenses in the National Football League. Brett, what do you think the top 5 defenses are in the National Football League? I mean, this is a test to see if you have one of my favorite defenses listed.
Well, I mean, I think the 49ers have got to be there. I think I think the Steelers are going to be a good defense this year. I think Philadelphia's got a great defense, and New England is always tough. I don't put either of these teams in that basket, though, Dave.
Yeah.
Maybe the Giants. The Giants are pretty solid. Remember the Giants gave the Vikings – did they give the Vikings fits in the playoffs last year?
They gave them fits in the regular season and in the playoffs. But
the Cowboys do have that stud on the outside. I mean, they're fun to watch on defense.
Yeah. Micah Parsons is amazing. The defense you didn't mention was a defense that's in the worst division in football, in the New Orleans Saints. And I think like that's a defense that, you might not worry about as much in the playoffs and everything, but since they play in such a weak division, I think that defense is going to end up ranking fairly high in the defenses in this upcoming season. So Cowboys all the way for me in this game. I don't know where
did that come from?
Anyway, so what do you think of this one?
Well, I mean, I think I'm going to take the Giants, Dave. I mean, there's nothing like a good opening day disappointment for Jerry Jones to make my Sunday happier. I mean, I think the Giants are a pretty good young football team. They made a nice run. I love their coach, Dable. I think he's a really solid guy. I like him a whole lot more than McCarthy on the other side of the field. Although I think Tony Pollard could lead every fantasy football league in points this year. It wouldn't surprise me. I think it was well overdue to give him the starting nod and get rid of Ezekiel Elliott. But again, there's a lot of inconsistency there at quarterback for the Cowboys. The defense doesn't show up every week, and so I'm going to go with the Giants. I just think that they're playing at home, right? The Giants, so. Yeah, I'm going to take a Meadowlands game. I'm going to take the Giants on opening day. I thought it was a kind of a large line. The Cowboys favored by 3 or something. So I'm going to take the Giants and the 3 points at home.
I think Jerry Jones and the Cowboy organization. I mean, they've got back-to-back seasons of 12-win games or 12 wins, per season. I've thought this for a long time because, you see Jerry Jones out talking every day. He's got or at least once a week, he's got that radio show in Dallas. He mouths out on, and, that's one place he can be controversial at least once a week. So, something's going to be said. But I think organizationally they do a good job with this Dallas Cowboy team, year in and year out, at least putting a team on the field that's capable of making it to the playoffs. Yeah, it's all we care about in Minnesota as well.
Dave, have you added to the wall behind you there? It just seems like there's an immense amount of Viking paraphernalia. I mean, when you go out shopping, whenever you see something, do you just pick it up and say, I got to have that?
No. It is almost like, do you think I went out and bought Ziploc bags, friend? These are all presents over the year. I don't think I bought a single thing. And in fact, the whole home office is just full of stuff.
We're learning a lot about Dave Dabbitt today. I don't think I've ever bought you. I don't think I've bought a single thing. You're a freeloader, is what you're telling me, Dave. Is that what you're telling me?
like the Kraken hat I showed you before we started the broadcast.
Your wife bought it for you, right? Yeah, I ain't buying it.
Got somebody else to buy it. All right. So those are our top 10 games worth actually spending some money on for week one. Brad, it's so good to be back, man. It's been like 6 months, 7 months since we've jumped on and done a show. What kind of parting words do you have for the public today? This is what people tune in for,
The parting words, yes, I agree. They all want it to end. The parting words is what they're looking forward to, right? No, the super fan was getting a hold of me earlier this week, wondering if we were going to do the show, and so she'll be happy to hear that we're producing a fourth season of Gods of Odds, and it's a long season. I got to be honest. I have 2 fantasy football leagues. I probably did less work leading up to my fantasy football drafts than I've ever done. I don't know why. I was really lethargic and just didn't have a lot of time on my hands. And the preseason is not what it used to be, Dave. Guys just don't play. And, maybe there's an occasional team where the coach says, yeah, we're going to play our starters or whatever. but I don't think there's a lot of information to glean from these preseason games. I expect that the first weekend will be sloppy. It has been for the last 2 years, but I'm hopeful, and it should be an entertaining game tonight with the Chiefs on, and the defending Super Bowl champs, and what can they do against the Lions team that a lot of people have high hopes for. But I would say by Thanksgiving, the Lions will be hanging on for dear life, and Jared Goff, they'll be talking about a new quarterback in Detroit. That's the way I feel about it.
Oh man, yeah, I couldn't have said that any better. And the Packers will be back to the Packers pre-Brett Favre. All will be right in the world.
The Magic Man will be back. Don Majkowski.
Don Majkowski, that's right. I remember the controversy when Favre took over. Anyways, just brutal. All right, well, there you go. That's it for week 1 of Gods of Odds Season 4. Brad Hoyseth is leading the pack. He's won 2 out of 3 seasons. I'm looking to make him pay this season, but picking the Browns was probably a bad idea. For Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Southern California, I'm Dave DeBaugh up in Northern California. Thanks so much for tuning into the Gods of Odds, and have yourself a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.